If we want our images to have timeless appeal, and I hope you do, we need to understand key. The key of a photograph basically means the predominant densities of the image. The main fill lighting contrast should follow the key. Because I shoot with auto exposure and I don't use a meter outside the studio, I'm just guessing at the lighting ratios on these photos. But these numbers are about right. With low key, we want a darker shadow side because it wouldn't look natural to have a bright fill when the overall lighting of the scene is dark. With a mid-key image, we want a pleasing ratio, which is usually around 3:1. Regardless of key, our eyes are drawn to the point of highest contrast. So in high-key images, we don't want a deep shadow. That would draw the viewer's eyes from the light side of the face. The purpose of choosing a key is to be able to separate the subject from the background. The viewer should see the subject and only the subject right away. Then they can study the rest of it. A high-key image has predominantly light tones with a properly exposed person. A high-key image is not one that's just overexposed or developed lighter. An image's key could be pushed higher, but there's a fairly limited range that skin tones should be exposed for proper rendition. This is high key. Everything has light tones except for the properly exposed subject. Because this was a high-key image, I kept the lighting contrast low. But because our eyes are drawn to the point of highest contrast, my attention goes to that little dark hole between her neck and her hair. I can certainly lighten that, but my point is that regardless of the key, we should do what we can to keep the viewer's eye on the face. I know that posting exceptions confuses the message. But nothing is absolute, and life is full of exceptions, so I want to share this one. I deliberately went with a hard light and higher lighting contrast. I think that when it's obvious that you broke a rule on purpose, then exceptions can work. Ideally, and especially if we enter an image in print competition as I did with this image in 1995, we should capitalize on a person with the right tones for the key. The whole point of understanding the key of an image is to help us keep the viewer's attention on the subject without being pulled away with something brighter or darker. We won't always have the luxury of everything being in the key that we want. That dark grass doesn't help. So I made it black and white, which made it easy to edit it for a lighter tone. This is almost there. Her dress and the background are all light, but there's that dark brown thing in the background. Do you see how it causes a slight conflict with allowing us to see the face? So I artworked it out. This makes it super easy to keep the attention on her face because that is now the only area of the image that's different, other than her brown hair, but we can't do anything about that. We can't always hope for a blonde to make high key, so that's one compromise that we just can't concern ourselves with. As you might expect, a low-key image has predominantly darker tones. This is the same subject as in the previous high-key image, and now everything around her face has dark tones, which helps force the viewer's eye to the face. While high-key images are great for a light, airy feeling, dark-toned and low-key images convey a moody or even a creepy feeling. Unless the subject has a very narrow range of tonality, the histogram should have data from 0 to 255. Because this histogram shows data slammed up against the left side and a gap on the right, it's underexposed. Mid-key images feature data that's mostly bunched up in the middle, so the histogram would look like a hill with the peak in the middle. This is a typical mid-key image with very few dark tones and very few bright highlights. So in mid-key images, you need to rely on other techniques to force attention onto the subject. Her smooth skin tone separated her nicely from the busy flowers. When we include dark objects in a light setting, or light objects in a dark setting, we distract from the subject's face. We want the viewer to immediately be drawn to the face first, then let them wander around the rest of the image. Like this white outfit in a dark scene. But we professionals need to know that this is something to avoid if possible. Well, like all rules, there are exceptions. When we're trying to draw attention to a person, rather than just the face, they can and should wear clothes that stand out. Furthermore, black and white seems to work well with contrast that we might not want in color. And in the studio, using a white background gives the subject more freedom to wear different outfits. And there are cases where you wouldn't want to wear white with white. When guys wear white against a white background, it just seems weak to me.